This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Hey, what is going on, everyone? Let's do this. Welcome to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily on a little bit of a chilly Wednesday here in the Peg. Things are going to heat up, though, for the rematch between the Bombers and Riders on Saturday at the Banjo Bowl, Princess Auto Stadium. We're going to welcome in Tony Jones from the Blue and Gold, get his thoughts on the game and the challenge ahead to get one back on their Prairie rivals in the rematch. We'll get into some notes from Bomber practice right off the top in just a minute when Remis joins me. And we're going to talk some hockey today, gang. Dave Pagnotta of the fourth period's back from the European travels. We'll see how that went. But, some CBA changes and some more scuttlebutt from around the league, contracts, guys like Kyle Connor needing extensions. We'll get the latest on that from around the league with Pagnotta. And then it has been too long, and you'll all be very happy to know that Murat is back in the Peg, and he's back on Winnipeg Sports Talk today. So really looking forward to catching up on Murat, see how his summer's been, and what he is focusing on as we are just 2 weeks away from Winnipeg Jet training camp opening. And of course, don't forget FanFest, Saturday, September 20th, out at the rink. And we'll, of course, be there for Winnipeg Sports Talk. Hopefully, we'll look forward to seeing many of you there as we get ready for a Winnipeg Jets season. Little fantasy football as well at the end of the program. Thomas Tipple popping back on as we get ready to dive into week one, set the lineups, get your DFS rosters ready. So we'll do some NFL talk a little bit later on, focusing in on week one with Thomas. Cool bet lines, our picks for the track as well coming up a little later on. Don't forget Ladies' Night tonight at Assiniboia Downs, Wednesday night throughout the year. Let me give a quick shout out to our sponsors before we bring in Reem. Huge thanks to our partners at Coolbet Canada, Princess Auto, Canadian Club, St. Vital Dental Center, Rollies Transfer, Manitoba Battery, F Apparel, Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge, Royal Sports, Boston Pizza, Little Brown Jug. Of course, our friends at Breezy Bend and Assiniboia Downs will do a why not question of the day for Not Auto Corp at Waverly and McGillivray. And some fan feedback for our friends at fansfirst.ca. By the way, great to, we're really looking forward to firing it up with the HSC Foundation Lottery. Was at the media kickoff today. Saw a bunch of friends in the media that I hadn't seen in a little while, and really looking forward to that. Of course, we had a great relationship with the HSC, putting on the Aikens trip earlier this year, and now it is just about lottery time. Of course, Milt Stiegel involved in that. We'll get Milt on as well in the next couple weeks to talk about that and the latest on the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. But welcome to everybody in chat. If you're with us on YouTube, hammer that thumbs up if you haven't already. And all of you podcast listeners, if you have the time ever, pop in, give us a 5-star rating, leave a review. Always helps us get some new listeners and people finding out about Winnipeg Sports Talk. Michael Remis, get in here. What's going on?
Man, first day of school for my kids. We're doing high fives over here in this household. Feeling pretty good. Start of a new season. Summer's over. Back to the routines. Also hockey around the corner. Some big off-ice hockey news. CBA changes we touched on the end of the show today. I know you and Dave will be getting to that. Bombers preparing for the Banjo Bowl. You got that big game feeling. Redemption possibly coming for the Blue and Gold. So I'm feeling great. CFL 110 out after this with you and Jeff. But excited to be here. And yeah, I'm just beaming. Kids at school. Lovely. We're doing a high five. Somersaults right when we got home from that one.
Geez, you know what? Is it just too much to have your children around you?
Yeah, I just
Isn't
hate
that the beauty of the holidays to have all that time with them?
I love having time with them. What do you mean? Look,
Not as much as the 10 months without them while school's on.
Hey, they got to go to school. They got to learn. They got to socialize.
That's true.
Can't be here all the time. I got to work too, I got to be able to afford to live. So nice that they're back at school with all their friends. I always say to my son, I'm like, you get to spend every day with all your friends. Isn't that so awesome? Once you get old, you don't realize you don't get to see them as much anymore.
No, that is true. That is for sure. Listen, we'll get to the Bombers in just a minute. Have you, did you hear about this Pablo Torre report?
With Kawhi Leonard.
Clippers and Kawhi Leonard?
So the report is that they gave him a fake job that paid him like $28 million in a way to circumvent the salary cap. Is that accurate?
That is exactly right. Steve Ballmer, the team owner of the Clippers, accused of circumventing the cap by paying $28 million to Kawhi for a, quote, no-show job. And Pablo Torre, who now does Pablo Torre Finds Out podcast, it is phenomenal. And, obviously we've got some great journalists. Jeff Hamilton just won a big national award. Pablo Torre is Big J of the year. I don't think there's any doubt about that. He has done some absolutely amazing and incredible work. My favorite work was when he was digging into the weird relationship between Bill Belichick and Jordan Hudson, which was kind of the intersection of sports and TMZ and all that. But he's actually done a ton of very, very groundbreaking work, and this would be part of it. So he did some real digging on this. He cited a trove of internal documents from the company Aspiration, which Ballmer partially funded with a $50 million investment through his personal LLC. Later that month, in 2021, the Clippers announced a $300 million partnership with the now bankrupt company, including sponsorship in the team's new arena and on the team's jersey patch. According to Pablo, Leonard agreed to a 4-year, $28 million endorsement deal. By the way, this is a tree planting company. It came 9 months after he signed a 4-year, $170 million contract to remain with the Clippers, the maximum allowed at the time under the CBA. Essentially, the payment to Leonard was a made-up no-show job to circumvent the cap. Now, this could be, look, there's not quite the death penalty in professional sports like you used to have in the NCAA. But Remis, this seems like the biggest cap circumvention, in really not just the NBA, but I would say North American pro sports since 2000, when the Timberwolves signed an illegal secret agreement with Joe Smith, who they basically agreed to a future multi-million-dollar deal if he signed a shorter, cheaper deal at the time. The penalty in 2000 to the T-Wolves was the loss of 5 first-round picks, a $3.5 million fine, and the head coach and owner banned for a season. You gotta wonder whether something like that might be coming for Steve Ballmer and the Clippers. And listen, the Clippers traded away all their first-round picks to get Paul George. Most of their picks for the next sort of 5 years are held by the Oklahoma City Thunder. Like, depending on how hard Adam Silver comes down on the Clippers, this is a team that could be basically irrelevant for the better part of the next 10 years without any first-round picks. Not to mention what happens with the owner and the player. I mean, this story is going to be massive in the NBA.
Yeah, and Pablo Torre was on Dan Patrick saying, they asked the Clippers for comment. They said it was probably false, and the Clippers didn't know that they had 3,000 pages of documents and 7 sources. So the reporting here seems to be pretty tight, and I'm curious what implications. And look, cap circumvention, huge issue. the NHL closing loopholes for playoff cap, but $28 million. And it does take you back. Remember when Kawhi was doing stuff with Toronto and the plane, going back and forth, and you have, Uncle Dennis meddling around. It does maybe it changes your view of how it goes, and were the Raptors not willing to play that type of ball, and the Clippers eager to get a star player were willing to do whatever it took, as Steve, I think it was like the early days of Steve Ballmer's ownership of the Clippers. So this is, going to be a huge story to follow, as Pablo Torre, he certainly found this one out.
Yeah, very, very well said. So anyways, that was just something that broke today that I think a lot of people will be interested just from a sports business side of things, as well as, an opportunity for Adam Silver, to really flex on, a team that obviously did a number of things that were outside of the spirit of the CBA, and it sounds like they've basically been caught red-handed. Some news from Pierre LeBrun, and we'll get into this and some of the other off-ice stories with Pagnotta coming up, Reem. But Pierre LeBrun reporting today, it's reported before, but the NHL has started to put together the regular season next year is going to begin in late September, and the cup will be awarded by mid-June. The preseason is shortened, but the regular season is going to be expanded to 84 games. I don't know, man. 84-game season to me is absolutely nuts. If anything, they should be going back the other way, but of course that would mean less dates, that would mean less HRR, and no one's interested in that. But I think we all agree that the game really and the product does suffer when you have so many games packed in. And, at what point do you get into NBA load management type things? You certainly hope that isn't the case. I do like, though, finishing up in mid-June and having a little bit of more time, at least a week or so before the draft and everything. And I'll tell you what, I think most people are ready to go at the beginning of October. If you're going to move that up a week or 10 days, I'm sure people will be here for it. Well, I think what we'll normally see is that right now, this day, coming out of Labor Day weekend, is probably when training camps will be beginning, as opposed to waiting the 2 weeks in September and then getting going in the middle of the month.
Yeah, that makes sense. The players, they're all ready to come to this, to the city that they work in. I mean, you see players right now at Hockey for All Center. A lot of players do have kids who are starting school, so you're going to want to be there and get set up. So why not just start it earlier? What are you waiting for? I guess they didn't want to conflict with the start of football season, but it gets so ridiculous and drawn out when it's, third or fourth week of June and you're handing out the Stanley Cup, and then 2 days later is the NHL draft, and then it's free agency. Like, why is it so compressed together? Pierre's been banging this drum, hand out the cup earlier for a while. I don't think he made this happen, but look, I don't like it going to 84 games, but they're adding in some stuff here that you do like. Less preseason, good. Earlier, season starting, good. They're putting in the playoff salary cap, which, I have an article that Emily Kaplan wrote on ESPN 2022, interviewing GMs saying that it wasn't an issue. But it seems to be such an issue that they're rushing to put it in before this CBA expires. So I think they're getting some things right. I'm curious, I feel sad that all the records are going to be changed now. You go to 84, you see in the NFL as well. They increase the games, but it just seems purely revenue driven.
Yeah.
That's the reason. It's just purely, we want
to short. As a season ticket holder, yeah. I will say this. I mean, you're already getting jammed for the preseason games. So, I mean, if I'm paying for more regular season games and less preseason games, I guess I'm fine with that. I think we all realize that, though. I mean, if you were coming up with this at the beginning, if you were looking for the best product and what's best for the players and the fans, it would be like a 70-game season. But that isn't the case, and that we're now going to 84. Here's something from Eric Engels, and you just sort of alluded to that with this playoff salary cap. The implementation of the playoff cap is still something to be ironed out. Eric asked him if cap-compliant roster submission must be made to the league hours ahead of a game. if that meant the end of, quote, game time decisions in the playoffs. Like if a team could submit a contingency roster that factors in a game time decision. He said that is a detail there will obviously be an answer to, but there is not one yet. It would be great to get those rosters and that information a little earlier for all parties involved, especially people that might be betting on games. But I will say this, Reem, I do think that the nature of hockey, especially in the playoffs where guys are so banged up and they're going to see if they can go, you're probably going to have to put in and get approved a couple of different lineups, I would imagine. And then whichever one that you use has already been greenlit as under the cap by the league.
Yeah, this was an interesting one. And the one thing that frustrates me as a fantasy player is they don't announce the starting goalies until like you have to like wait warm up to see who's coming out first. It's stupid. And other sports have figured out, hey, you got to put this information out there. People want to know it. So look, they're having, this change now that you have to be cap compliant in the playoffs. I guess they haven't figured out yet how to implement it. There's so much secrecy with injuries. Would you have to declare, at what point do you have to declare your roster to be cap compliant? Is there a deadline, or would you have to submit contingency rosters? I thought this was a good question from Eric, but they're clearly very early in deciding all this, and maybe Dave Pagnotta will have more coming up. But that was an interesting wrinkle here as we look ahead to the playoffs.
Yeah, this is just a bit of a glimpse of some of the topics we'll be hitting with Pags coming up when he joins us in just a few minutes. Murat as well, if you just popped in late. It's been a minute. Murat's been away this summer. He's back. He'll join us today. And then, Remo, we'll talk to Tony Jones a little later on as we get closer to Banjo Bowl Saturday. Bombers got out there today for day one of practice, and courtesy of our pal Derek Taylor, Pokey Wilson is out there wearing his number 80, and lots of Pokey with the first team of receivers so far. Listen, we saw Joe play with basically no practice on Sunday, so it certainly can be, I think it could be the case. It's just interesting that, for instance, Demerio Houston wasn't in. I do wonder if just the recency that Pokey was here with the club last year, that maybe there's a better chance of him playing because, listen, he was a brilliant talent last year. He's back for this season and next. To me, the sooner you can get him involved, the better. But I will say this, it was probably one of the most explosive game the Bomber passing offense had all year against the Riders on the weekend.
Yeah, something to note as well, Dalton Schoen not participating. He appeared to come up limping on the 2-point convert attempt, Derek Taylor notes. So that's something to watch. But yes, DT noting a lot of Pokey Wilson, and you saw Joe come in and play right away. And look, Pokey's been practicing. He knows the playbook. He was with the Bombers, and they have had needs at receiver. To be fair to them, they had a great game, and Zach had a great game. But I'm curious about this Schoen injury. And also, if they're taking out Dylan Mitchell to put in I don't know, who are they taking out? Clercius, Wheatfall? Who are you taking out? So we'll have to see.
I would assume it's Mitchell.
They said regular set, Ed notes, regular set includes Wheatfall, Dembski, Clercius, and Wilson, with Schoen a spectator. So, yeah, Mitchell, that was an easy decision for them to remove him from the lineup. It hasn't been his year. And yeah, Ontario Wilson, very good last year. So that would be a big boost. Something to keep an eye on here as day one of practice.
Couple other updates. DT Tanner Schmeichel's watching practice from the bench. He was put on the 6th game last week. Reddick Cramdy is back practicing. He missed the Labor Day Classic and all 3 days of practice last week. And Nick Hallett, practicing fully, missed the last 2 games as head/eye. And we are seeing Demerio Houston getting more work with the Bombers starters on D. It's time to get him into the game, and I certainly expect that will be the case. But check this out. The Bomber offense also working on it started right off with a jumbo package up front. And then, of course, the regular set includes Wheatfall, Dembski, Claricius, and Pokey Wilson as the receiving core without shown in. And as I said, no sign of Dylan Mitchell. So a little bit of light into it. But I will say this. It is a concern. Dalton Schoen has the worst luck late in games, Reem. If you recall, his first injury this week was at the end in complete garbage time against the Calgary Stampeders. And listen, that cost him 6 games. Returned to the team on Sunday in the game, had a big touchdown, a couple of impactful plays, and then in the final minute, dinged up on that 2-point play. So you really have to hope that Schoen will be able to go because, listen, you can bring in Pokey Wilson. Excited about that. Should help the team. But if you're losing Schoen, it's 1 step forward, 2 steps back as far as I'm concerned. He's that important to Zach Collaros in this Bomber offense.
Very important, but can't stay on the field and had nice production on Sunday, fit in really well. But I don't want to give a guy an injury-prone label, but I mean, it's been a couple of years here of difficulty for him. So hopefully it's nothing serious, but not participating today as Ed and Derek Nota practice. So that's something we're going to be watching. And look, Dembski, we'll wait to hear what Mike O'Shea has to say after, but Dembski barely practiced last week, but he had the head injury and, from getting slammed to their neck, whatever they want to call it. And so we'll have to see if there's an update after. Not a great sign, but it is day one and, more important later on in the week, but certainly a concern that, he's again, just came back and missing right away.
Mean, you can't help the club from the tub. So they got to get him onto the field and hopefully regularly for the rest of the season. First things first, though, his availability for Saturday, and we'll get more from Mike O'Shea, from our media friends as the Bombers finish up practice in the festivities today. All right, we're going to have Dave Pagnotta come on with us in just a couple minutes. A big thanks and shout out to our friends at Rolly's Transfer, the moving and storage experts in Winnipeg. Rolly's is founded here in Manitoba, family owned and operated for over 60 years, the most trusted name in moving and Manitoba. You've seen their trucks all over the roads, including the WST truck that we're all so proud of. Folks, if you have a move coming up, lean on our friends at Rolly's. Go over to the website at rollies.com. Top right corner, you can click on request an estimate. Put in the promo code WST for a special discount on moving services and moving supplies. And then simply fill it out and let them know when you're moving, where you're moving to, and what needs to be moved. And the friendly staff at Rollies will turn it around quick, get you a great quote, and get you locked in for the white glove treatment that Rollies has been famous for now into their 7th decade. For all your moving needs, make it Rollies. Find out more at rollies.com today. All smiles over at St. Patel Dental Center, and all smiles on a lot of parents, as Remis alluded to today, that school's back in and the kids are off on their way. Of course, speaking of kids, St. Patel Dental Center has been serving generations of Winnipeg and Manitoba families. And if you're looking for a great spot to take care of all your dental needs, St. Patel Dental is that spot. Our pal Dr. Terry and his wonderful staff are waiting for you. And they will be able to handle customers from 6 months to 99 plus with everything offered, from things like cleanings and checkups all the way to procedures like dental implants. Find out more today, stpateldental.ca. You can also hit them up at stpateldental.ca for appointments and more information on everything they can do for you. It was quite the weekend in Regina for all the Bomber fans. I did see a few of those special Blue Bomber label Canadian Club bottles that were obviously transported from Manitoba out to Saskatchewan. Of course, Canadian Club's the official spirit of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Limited edition Blue Bomber label CC is in stores right now while supplies last. So pick that up. And of course, while you're at it, make sure to keep your eyes out for the Canadian Club Club Pack, the drinks of the summer. The 12-pack includes CC and Ginger, the Citrus Smash, and the Half and Half. Pick that up at your local Manitoba liquor marts as well. All right, let's get to a little off-season hockey talk with one of the most interesting men in the business. He has just come back from Europe, and he's back on WST. Pags himself, Dave Pagnotta. Dave, what's going on, man? How are you?
I'm good, buddy. Nice intro. Wow.
Well, you know what? It's been a minute since we've talked. I've been interested in your travels and how the summer's been, and obviously everything else happening. How has the summer been? Like, outside of work, we'll get to Europe in a minute. The crazy grind going through the Cup final, did you just unplug for a few weeks, or what did you do post-season?
Yeah, around July 5th, when everything died down, I just shut off for a good week and regrouped a little bit. And then the following week, regrouped in a different fashion. I couldn't tell you how that week went. I don't remember. Then I took another week off because of that other week. But it's been a good summer for the most part, nice and fun. Didn't get to kind of bounce around as much as I wanted to. We were prepping for the European media tour and in Milan, which was a lot of fun. That was great, and actually leave on Sunday for the North America tour next week in Vegas. So just a good summer overall, nice and relaxing. I want to thank all the general managers for deciding not to work over the summer. So we didn't have any trades to talk about, but oh well, such is life.
So tell us about this Euro trip. In Italy, I guess, because that's where the Olympics will be. Yep. Who was all there, and what goes on at these things?
The European tour is a little bit different than the North America tour. So basically there were 26 athletes. I think there's another 26 going to the North America one. Basically, it's just an opportunity to sit down with the guys, catch up, prep for the season, get some fun storylines going, talk about last season, what they did over the summer. Also, we did a lot of lifestyle-related stuff, get to know these guys a little bit better as well. And for the guys that are either have already been named to the Olympic team, like Heiskanen and Aho on Finland and Hischier and on Switzerland and so on, just talk about the hype towards Olympics and how excited they are and all that fun stuff. So it was a full day. It was one full day of interviews. We interviewed 27 people, 26 players, plus Bill Daly, the deputy commissioner, starting at 8 a.m. all the way to just after 4, prep time at 7. It was a full day, a lot of fun, a little tiring, but a lot of fun. North America one's different. There's some on-ice stuff. It spans over 3 days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and next week. So there's a lot of on-ice stuff, a lot more media that attends. I think other than local European media, I think it was Dennis and myself for Sirius XM. I think Elliot and Kyle with 32 Thoughts at Sportsnet, they were there. Mike Russo with The Athletic and Mike Zeisberger with NHL.com. And that was it from our side of the pond. Everybody else was on the Euro side. So it was a lot of fun, really cool opportunity to get to know these guys. And we'll be doing it again with some of the North American players. We've got some Euros kind of in the mix there too. So we're excited about it.
Well, it sounded like a very, very long day. Did Dennis get his mandatory time in the club in Milan?
Yes. We had a few nights out. We ran into some familiar faces from the day as well. So a lot of fun. DB was rocking it. Our hotel was just outside, like a 2-minute walk from Il Duomo, the big cathedral, and there's a club that's located just across the street from it. You get the cathedral in the background. DB was loving that. He was loving the nightlife there with all the history behind it and the beverages on our side.
I love it. Now, listen, obviously you guys are getting ready for the season, but a big part of this season is Italy and the Olympic Games. What were you hearing from the Eurostars of the National Hockey League about the opportunity to represent their country? I really do feel like the first half of this season is all going to be played not only about the standings, but also about what's to come when we get best on best again.
Yeah, it's like a tryout for some of the guys that haven't already been named, right? Like you got your 6 guys that were already named, and it's almost an in-season tryout to kind of make an argument to make that team. Everyone we talk to everyone we talk to has the potential of making their Olympic team. European players view it a little bit differently than perhaps us on this side of the pond. It's Stanley Cup first, Olympic gold second. Over there, it's like a neck and neck Olympic gold, Stanley Cup right behind it kind of thing. But everybody was really jacked at the opportunity to represent. Now, we asked a lot of the Swedes and the Finns separately if it would mean a little extra if they won the gold against their rival country. Everyone said yes. So it would mean, I mean, they all said, you know, the typical, like, if it's for gold, we don't care. And I believe most of them. I think, you know, but then some of them said, look, if it's round robin and we get a chance to really, you know, give them the gears, that might be a little bit more special. But honestly, everybody's excited for it. It means a lot. It's the first time they've been back in a while. And to represent your country in any sport is an honor, and these guys don't take it lightly.
No, I mean, listen, the Four Nations last year was just a taste. And now, you know, the full tournament is going to be so much fun. Cannot wait for it.
And a lot of guys were talking about that as well, how Four Nations really ramped everything up. And the guys on Sweden and Finland were talking about watching the Canada-US game, that 9 seconds in. I think Finland, the guys in the Finns were saying they were on the bus when they were watching it, and the Swedes just got to their hotel right as it happened. So they missed the first one with Tkachuk. And then they got in. Then they just were glued to their TVs to find out what the hell happened, and then they saw the next three or next two, I guess, that went at it. So it was, even they were like shell shocked by what happened.
Any chance that would happen in a Finland-Sweden game now that they've seen the North Americans sort of set the tone?
Well, remember, in Olympics you can't fight, so you get kicked out of the game.
Just on that, okay, a double IHF rules for this. So any fighting, you're out. Like
out, you're done.
Probably doesn't bode well. I mean, we all wish that Tom Wilson was on Team Canada at the Four Nations. He, of course, is in the mix for the team, but I mean, any sort of nonsense like that's probably not happening in this. Everyone's going to be taking notes and have long memories, and then there's just going to be a flurry of cheap shots in the NHL once things get going again when the season resumes.
Oh, you can throw the body around in the Olympics. You can. There's going to be a lot of that. I think there's going to be a lot of mucking in the scrums and stuff. But I mean, if you drop the mitts, you're out. I don't know if it's an additional game. That's the only thing I can't remember. But I know fight automatically tossed from the game.
Hey, the league and the PA have kind of locked in a bunch of transition dates going into this new CBA. But there's a number of things that have changed for this year right now. Just thoughts on, you know, the play, the changes to LTIR, the new playoff salary cap, and how were they able to come together and make this happen now for something that most GMs said wasn't really an issue a year or two ago before the new one kicks in the following season?
Yeah, I think some concessions on both sides. The players get to, you know, the uniform implementation, the endorsements for booze. Stuff like that gets kicked in right away. And then, the playoff LTIR gets kicked in now as well. So the roster that hits the ice in a playoff game has to be under the salary cap or at the salary cap. You got to be cap compliant to play any game in the playoffs. Now, that doesn't mean you can have a team that exceeds the cap overall, but that lineup that's going in that night has to be cap compliant. So you can still, you know, bolster your roster, push yourself towards a playoff run, get in. But game one and every game following has to be cap compliant. So it's going to take a little bit of juggling potentially for teams that do load up because of the LTIR that they could utilize to their advantage for the rest of the regular season. But come playoff time, you got to be cap compliant. So I know everybody was crying over, you know, Matthew Tkachuk isn't starting the season, and why did he wait so long to have surgery and this, that, and the other. Well, it doesn't really matter come playoff time because whatever roster goes in, again, that 20-man roster has to be at or under the salary cap if they want to play.
Now, just on that, I mean, we were just reading the tweet from Eric Engels, who I guess asked Bill Daly, like, do teams have to submit their roster and it gets greenlit by the league? And what happens if guys are game time decisions? Do they have to go and have a secondary lineup? If this guy can't go, this is who we're playing, and green light that one as well. Like, I guess they're all just working on how this process is going to work.
Yeah, so that the interesting thing in that regard is what the penalty is if it is a game time decision and a player slots in and they're a smidge over the cap. If a guy can't play and they bring in another guy and it's a little bit over the cap, what happens in that instance? Now,
I don't think they'd be able to do it. I think they just have to play with the shorter guy.
Right, which may end up being the case if it gets caught right away. Sometimes you submit your roster and your lineup card to the refs within minutes of the pregame. And sometimes you submit it just after your pregame or the skate around. And we may see guys get pulled off the bench if the league catches it in time. So that's the thing that I'm really curious about. I don't think any team wants to penalize themselves, but by any stretch. But the game time decision one, guys dealing with injury, can he skate around? Can he get through the motions? And then, okay, he's good, so we'll throw him in the lineup. That's the one that's going to be interesting to follow, but I'm sure they're going to kind of figure out what the game plan is there as we get towards the playoffs. We still got till, obviously, the middle of April.
Dave Pagnotta's with us from the fourth period. You've got your latest up on the site right now. Listen, there's a lot of players that need contracts. Certainly we're keen to see what happens with Kyle Connor, but let's start at the top of the food chain with Connor McDavid. It was kind of funny, and I thought he handled it very well. The first question out of the gate at the Olympic thing was about his contract. This is the biggest story in hockey and will be until there is clarity on his future and his next contract. What are you hearing about Connor? And what was your takeaway from what we heard from him last week?
I mean, he said all the right things. It's for me, it wasn't a surprise what he had mentioned and where his mindset is at. I have no doubt in my mind that he signs an extension with the Oilers. To what extent, I'm not sure. I think it'll be midterm, but he could sign the max 8 years. It could be a 3, 4, 5-year deal. It could be 6. It could be 8. Everything is kind of on the table, as he mentioned, and as I think management, Jeff Jackson and Stan Bowman, have also in the last few days come out and said, we're letting him figure it out, and then when he's ready, we'll move forward. They've already discussed options. They've already discussed possibilities. It's just a matter of what he's the most comfortable with. Again, I have zero doubt that he does not sign an extension. Like he will, in my opinion, and based on everything that I've been told. It's just a matter of when. Now, he also mentioned he doesn't want this a distraction, but he's not putting a timeline on it. If he enters the regular season without a deal, that's going to be a bit of a distraction. This isn't Mitch Marner, with all due respect to Mitch. This is Connor McDavid. He's the best player in the league. Mitch last season here in Toronto said, boys, we tried, we talked, we're going to focus on the season and get to it. We've got plenty of time. And ultimately he wasn't going to sign, and they did that sign and trade with Vegas. I don't see that being the case with Edmonton, but at the same time, it's going to be a distraction as the season progresses. So if he wants to deal with it, if the Oilers want to deal with it, that's on them. And it's entirely possible that that's the case. Look, he could even, first day of the regular season, say, look, we're going to figure this out. I don't want to talk about my contract until it's done. Any questions will be ignored. It could simply be that, and it would minimize the distraction. But the longer it goes, the more obviously people will talk about it. Again, I think he stays. How long he stays, my guess is that midterm 3 to 5 year range, but we'll ultimately see. I don't see a scenario where he leaves Edmonton after this coming season.
Dave, there's a number of guys in this category. The one that we're most interested in here in the PEG is Kyle Connor. I know you had a blurb on that yesterday. What are you hearing about the Jets situation as they look to ink their number one scorer?
Yeah, I mean, those conversations will continue or resume, get back to it, whatever. Here, if not this week, next, when everybody kind of gets to camp and whatnot. We're a couple weeks out of camps. I think players start to go in for their medicals around the 15th, something like that. And then camps across the league usually open around the 17th, which is a couple Wednesdays from now, or 2 weeks actually today. But they'll resume those conversations and get things going, I think, with everybody. Kaprizov in Minnesota, Eichel in Vegas, Kempe in LA, and Gustafsson also in Minnesota, and so on and so on. Look, they want to keep him. I think he's definitely interested in staying. It's just a matter of how the money is going to look and what the overall term is going to be. I think a lot of guys are kind of waiting to see what the next guy does. I think Kaprizov has a good chance of signing first among the group, because I think I think the numbers are understood a little bit better in Minnesota with his situation. That could affect Eichel. That could affect Connor. That could affect Kempe and in terms of what they're looking for. It's going to be 8 figures. You want to stay in Winnipeg, or you want to keep me in Winnipeg? You're talking about 10 million plus. I think it's going to be above the Hellebuck and Scheifele mark. I'd be surprised if it's not, based on his capabilities. But again, term may play a factor here in how they evaluate this situation. But I'd be a little bit surprised if they don't figure this out.
You know, I mean, for a player like Kyle Connor, and I mean, pretty much everyone that is in, you know, they've had long-term deals that are wrapping up right now. Like Kyle's 28. He's going to be 29 come December. For players that are 28, 29, like with the exception of maybe of a McDavid, I could understand a 3-year deal making sense. And then you're 32 and then you're inking another 7. I guess there's no more 8-year deals, but you know, you get a 7-year deal when you're 32 or 33, paying you top dollar right through till you're 40. But I would imagine for the Kyle Connors, the Kaprizovs, I mean, pretty much everyone else not named McDavid, getting your max deal right now with the 8 years, probably the best way for most of these guys to go, I would assume, Dave.
That's my guess as well. All the talk surrounding Kaprizov and Mini, it's an 8-year deal. That's everything that I'm hearing, and other people are reporting it. Likely an 8-year deal. I heard it was going to be somewhere in the 120 to 130 range. So you're anywhere from 15 to just over 16. It's going to be somewhere in that ballpark. Yeah, for Kaprizov. Eichel, I'm hearing similar numbers in a non-tax free state. So that equates to around that $13 million ballpark in Vegas or in any of the other tax-free free state clubs. You look at Mitch Marner. Now, a couple of things that happened with Mitch that kind of has affected some of the market. 12 million in Vegas is 13.5 to 14 in some of the top tax states, and in some of the top Canadian markets that have high tax brackets. So that number, you kind of understand where that ballpark is. And he signed an 8-year deal. So it adds to the argument to go that route for a number of different cases. For Connor's situation, I think for Kempe's situation, I think even for Eichel's situation in Vegas, plus Kaprizov and all the discussions that are surrounding him. Nate Chass is another one in Colorado. What's he going to look for? Is he going to go short and then go long? Now, some guys, the argument to go short is the cap is supposed to be 104 next year. That's a minimum. There's a chance it goes above that. And so next season is going to go up $8.5 million, but there's a chance that increases. And the projection for the following year is $9.5 million. But based on how revenues go, that'll dictate whether those numbers increase even further. And those are possibilities. So we'll see kind of what that does to some of these negotiations for some of these other players that are also looking to, bank big deals. But I would imagine guys like Connor and Kempe, the guys that are in their late 20s, early 30s, are probably going to look for more term to lock into that security. But be prepared for the 14, 15, $16 million numbers, because those are going to continue to accrue year after year. Like if McDavid's in the 16, 17, $18 million range on a midterm deal, I don't think that's going to surprise anybody. And then this time next year, we're talking about Cale Makar and what he's going to command. So a year from now, that might be 17 minimum.
What does Quinn Hughes have left?
He's in the same boat as Makar. So they each have 2 years left on their deal, both eligible to sign July 1 of next summer, 2026. So both of those guys are going to be north of 15 million for sure on their next contracts.
Now, Dave, I see the aggregators were all over your note on Kyle Connor. I just put in Kyle Connor into Google, and the first thing that comes up is Yahoo Sports. Winnipeg Jets receive promising Kyle Connor contract update, and it links to your story. I mean, is it safe to, would we describe that as a promising contract update, or it's more that's promising because they're actually going to be talking about this? Because listen, our big conversation here, and listen, some people in the media have a different opinion than I do, but they got to get this figured out, preferably by the time the puck drops on the regular season, because like many of these other spots, that all of a sudden becomes a story that does not go away. And even more so in Winnipeg because of the challenges of getting people to come here as free agents, no trades, all of those things. Like, I am of the opinion that the Winnipeg Jets cannot go down the same road that they did with Nikolai Ehlers last year and potentially lose Kyle Connor for nothing. Like, if they find out and they go through this process and realize that I'm not saying that they are, but if they got to a stalemate where they didn't think they were going to get him done, I think the organization would have to look at plan B, which would be talking to other teams.
I would agree with you. The difference with Nick Ehlers is, I was on your show. We talked about it a year prior, that the likelihood of him staying in Winnipeg was very minimal. I mentioned it a number of times that I did not expect him to stay in Winnipeg, and that's the information that I was given. I've not gotten that sense with Kyle Connor by any stretch. Now, again, that being said, promising, yes, they're talking. I think he'd like to stay. It's a matter of what the number is. If the team is saying, well, we're not going to exceed the Hellebuck-Scheifele number.
Oh, that's not happening. I mean, you couldn't even walk, like, with where the cap is and everything like that. I mean, you couldn't even walk into that meeting and even go there. I mean, I think everyone understands. And I mean, you say it's going to start with a 1. I think it might start with 2 1s. Like, and to be honest, I think that would be, I mean, that's fair market value for a guy that put up 97 points and is the most important offensive catalyst right now for the Winnipeg Jets. And I mean, listen, and if we're talking about 15s for a couple of those other guys, frankly, I'd take the 11-5 right now and run. Yeah. From a Jets perspective.
I would not be, again, I would not be shocked if that's what it will take for Winnipeg to do that. Now, they also have one of the deepest pocketed guys, owners in the league. So that helps. But obviously it's a business and that has to be factored in as well. But if they want to keep that competitive window open, and this is going to be a team that, as the current roster stands, is going to be in that competitive window, or at least have that open for the foreseeable future, to lose out on a guy like Kyle Connor, that's detrimental to your chances. So promising, yes, they're having conversations. There's a willingness on both sides to try to get something done. Has it progressed in the last week or few days? I don't know. But I know those conversations are going to be getting serious in the not too distant future. And I think from the Jets' perspective, echoing what you said, it's almost imperative to get this locked in by the start of the season. They've got a little over a month to do that. And I mean, that's, if I'm Chevy and the whole crew, and Chipman and everybody, that's my number one priority, to try to get this done. They could be very quietly doing it as we speak, and all the power to them, or they may find out it's not going to happen. But I do think there is some positivity around the fact that he'd like to stay. They obviously want to keep him. It's a matter of finding that sweet spot. And again, some of these, like, a lot of people are wondering, well, why the hell couldn't you just done this in July or in August? Well, because of all the other guys in the market that are looking for new deals, everybody kind of wants to make sure they don't panic and lose out on significant dollars.
Yeah, I know. I mean, this is a great point. And all I'll say on this is that if Kyle Connor and his camp are, excited to, potentially stay with this club long term, the team is certainly in that same case from everything that I'm hearing.
Yep.
A deal will be there to be made. And it's just a matter of when that gets done, and if we have to talk about it as we get into the regular season, or if they do exactly that. Hey, I want to just circle back to Hughes for a minute, because he is not part of these extension eligible players, but he is clearly the franchise in Vancouver.
Yes.
How do you see this playing out for Hughes? And how much will his future be a part of this season, even though he's not eligible to sign any sort of extension until we get to July 1st?
Well, it's important for him to have a big year because, based on what you just said, the eligibility factor kicking in July 1. He has a hell of a season. He's at 80, 90 points, and he's helping push this team to a playoff spot. That's going to bode pretty well on his side for negotiations to try to max out on $13, $14, $15 million deal per year. So I think Vancouver understands that. They know where that is at. It's just, again, a matter of how's this season going to go. And like he mentioned it the other day, his buddies stuck around. Garland stayed. Besser stayed. Demko signed his extension. He's got his core intact. Now it's just a matter of how they perform with Adam Foote kind of leading the charge as the new head coach. So this season, there's nothing they can do contract-wise. They can have discussions. Hey, here's what we're thinking. We'll get to it when we get to it. It's almost a moot point because you have to wait to see how the season plays out. If he unfortunately gets injured, that'll factor in, so on and so on. All these different variables kind of come into play. But there's no question that the Vancouver Canucks want this guy to be their guy for a very, very long time. And you just got to wait to see how the season plays out.
Yeah, I mean, there would be, if they felt like there was the inkling that he wants to get to free agency and play with his brothers, it may be a kick in the ass to do something earlier as far as a deal, just to maximize the value if you don't think you're going to be able to sign him. But, I mean, he is number one priority by a million miles for Vancouver. And, I mean, you wonder, like, if they felt that they had to do that, like, what that would do in the market. Because, I mean, after everything that happened last year with JT Miller and Paterson, it's very clear who the franchise player is, and it's Quinn Hughes. And it's just interesting. I bring that up because many of these other teams are having their same conversations with these guys that are now eligible. If any of them get to the point where it's not going to work out and teams are then looking to deal, you kind of look back going, man, if we could have done that deal the year before at the trade deadline where you're giving a team 2 playoff runs on a particular contract, the value of what you're going to get in return probably increases. Yeah,
and the other variables here are no movement clauses. Like Toronto, Mitch Marner had one. So to look to move him mid-season obviously it didn't work. And at the same time, they felt they're a cup contender. Toronto was a game away from moving on to the next round over Florida. So different kind of scenario there compared to what's happening in Vancouver. But the Canucks might not have much of a choice but to just give him close to what he's looking for. So we'll see, obviously, how that goes as the season progresses. He could sign an 8-year extension July 1 or August 1, or September 1 of next year. The terms change September 15 or 16, whatever it is, next year. So there's still, this isn't the last window right now to sign those max term contracts. You could still have next offseason to do it as well. So a lot to think about for the Canucks, but not really, because if you want to stay competitive and stay moderately relevant at the very least at the NHL level, you got to lock up your cap.
Yeah, here's a pen, Quinn. Just fill it in and return it to us, and we'll look forward to moving forward with you. Hey, Pags, have a great time in Vegas. Keep DB under control in the club, and we'll look forward to a lot as we get ready for training camps coming up at thefourthperiod.com. Thanks for doing this, buddy. Hope you had a great summer.
Thanks, bud. Talk to you soon.
Good stuff. There's Dave Pagnotta at thefourthperiod.com. And, of course, at The Fourth Period on X with great stuff from all around the National Hockey League. Speaking of great stuff from around the National Hockey League, guess who's back? Murat. She's going to join us in just a minute. Saturday, of course, is the big game here in Winnipeg. The biggest regular season game at Princess Auto Stadium all year is the Banjo Bowl. It's been sold out for weeks, and the stadium will be rocking. Princess Auto, of course, proud sponsors of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and their home. Founded and headquartered right here in Winnipeg and now coast to coast across the country, but with 3 locations to serve you in Manitoba, where you'll find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is waiting for you at Princess Auto. So pop by and see them in store or shop online 24/7, 365 over at princessauto.com. It is a little chilly out today for the next couple days. I think we'll get back to maybe a little bit nicer weather next week, but I don't need to remind you what is just around the corner for us in addition to hockey season. Of course, when you need batteries for your car or truck to get through the Manitoba winter, there's only one place you need to go or call, and that is Manitoba Battery, your local option with the best prices in town, period. As Donnie says, wake up Winnipeg, stop overpaying for batteries, and save up to $60 a battery when you shop local at Manitoba Battery. You can pop by and see them at Logan Avenue, their new store on Dovercourt Drive in the south end of the city. Give them a call or order online at manitobabattery.com, because Manitoba Battery will also deliver those to you for free anywhere inside the perimeter with any purchase over $60. Manitoba Battery, for all your battery needs. Shop online today at manitobabattery.com. And hey, gang, it is the change of seasons coming up. Many of you might be needing to up your menswear game. If that's the case, you need to head down and check out our pals at F Apparel at 190 Smith Street downtown. Custom suits starting at just over $400. Chinos, golf pants, custom shirts, both tuck and untucked styles, and an incredible selection of menswear accessories. Hit them up in store at 190 Smith Street, or check them out online at EPHapparel.com to book in for a fitting. Oh, it seems like forever since we've had our pal Murat on the program. He is back. He's refreshed. He's ready for hockey season. And he joins us now on WST. Murat, my friend, it's great to talk to you. How was your summer?
Wow. It's great to talk to you. It's great to be back. Summer was a blur, but I spent it well with some family, some overseas visit, checked in with my mom. She's subscribed to The Athletic now. It took me a long enough time. It's been great, Huss. Glad to see you. How are you?
I'm great. I mean, you come out of, we had a hell of a time with a whole bunch of listeners and Bomber fans out in Regina on the weekend for the big football game for the Labor Day Classic. And for me, this is maybe my favorite time of year. I mean, we're doing our fantasy football stuff. We've got NFL kickoff this weekend. We got the Banjo Bowl on Saturday, the first NFL Sunday. And then, Murat, in 2 weeks, we're going to see the Winnipeg Jets back on the ice. It was, it kind of really felt like September, not only with the kind of the weather changing after Labor Day, but what a sight yesterday on the Jets social medias of Jonathan Toews wheeling around in the Heritage Uni out at the Iceplex. I'm really looking forward to this training camp. I mean, the intrigue of Toews, the latest on the captain, Adam Lowry, and that home opener. I mean, when that team is introduced, a President's Trophy banner is raised, a first ever division trophy raised, Toews' introduction, and probably what will be the most heartwarming part of it all is, of course, Mark Scheifele's back the first time in front of the fans since the passing of his father and his gutsy Game 6 performance. I mean, there is a lot to be excited about and look forward to before we even get to the regular season.
Yeah, it's crazy that I don't get mad when the 30-kilometer-an-hour signs kick in again, because I'm like, okay, it means that it's go time. And, people, okay, yeah, safety and all of that too, right? But, it is a symbol of the season. And I'm excited for camp as well. There's so much to see, everything you just named. I mean, Mark Scheifele, the emotional note he ended last season on, can't wait to see what he's got in store for this year, not only in sort of processing everything he's gone through, but making his Team Canada bid. It's going to be a big season for him in so many different ways. Jonathan Toews, I saw Remo pulled that image. Well done. You're still sharp, Remo. Good to see it. I'm sure there's a lot of Jets fans who are just moved by that sight as well. I have some folks in the inbox who are a little trepidatious about Toews as well, but I'm going to say my experience has been maybe 95-5. The overwhelming majority of Jets fans are jacked, and I'm sure that seeing him is going to be a big deal for a certain generation of hockey fan for sure. Even Gustav Nyquist, what is he capable of? What about all the AHL guys that they signed who might not be AHL guys, like a Walker Dewar or a Tanner Pearson, or probably Cole Koepke's an NHL player the way I see it. There are a lot of changes. Ehlers is gone. There's a lot of new faces as well. It's going to be a really unique one. And then where do they go from a President's Trophy situation and a first round win? It's going to be a lot to watch.
Yeah, it's funny. I was at the kickoff today for the HSC Foundation lottery, and saying hi to some people. A few people came up and introduced themselves, and inevitably, hey, how do you think the Jets are going to do this year? And I said, well, listen, I think it's unlikely you go back to back as President's Trophy winners. And I think more so than any, especially with the loss of Lowry, the loss of, Ehlers not being around, you're bringing in Taves, you're bringing in Nyquist, potentially a real different look maybe on the fourth line as well. Like, this could be far more of a process of a team learning about each other and coming together, as opposed to the one that raced out of the gate at 15-1 last year, which really at the end of the day was the difference between winning the President's Trophy and just being a strong playoff team.
Yeah, what an incredible record-setting start that was.
It's insane.
The power play was a big part of that too. So that I'm going to be interested to see what it can do in its second year. Ehlers will be off it. Who gets that spot? Probably Cole Perfetti, and he had success there. Could they look for a way to rope Jonathan Taves into that spot as well? Who else is available? Gustav Nyquist. There's going to be a little bit of shuffle there. But I agree with you that it's going to be a learning process, not just them getting to know each other, but even from a management point of view, where they're going to sort of spend part of the season assessing, well, how close to good enough is this team? They've left cap space unused heading into the season, just like they did last year. And that usually means the plan is to spend it at some point later if they're in a playoff spot. So there could be some mid-season additions depending on what opens up and how well Taves, Nyquist, et cetera, can sort of fill the void. See what happens in Lowry's absence at the start too. It's kind of a lot of moving parts in an attempt to keep the same level of quality performance in the regular season. And that's going to be a gardening situation. The work will never be done, I don't think, as they try to maintain their level.
You know what? I'll just kind of get back into the summer for a minute. Of course, you were away doing traveling, but credit to you, you're still all over the Dylan Samberg news. And I believe you had that first. What was it like? Were you in Europe at that point? What was it like kind of being on that beat so much and then working from very remotely? And then just in addition to that, thoughts on where they settled to get Samberg back on a shorter term deal that I think a lot of people thought was coming.
Yeah, it was an interesting process because I was in Turkey visiting family, right? I spent, a few weeks there and I was making the rounds and all of that sort of stuff. So I did my very best to not be on my phone, and I turned it on at some very, very key times and made some key contacts or what have you. And I'm pleased to say that, yeah, I did break that, and it was it was poolside. So it was kind of one of the nicer days in being a sports journalist. And that came together really nicely.
Gotta love technology, Murat.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I'm grateful for that. The deal was an interesting one because I think the idea was that Samberg and Winnipeg were open to a long-term deal, throughout the process. And that's true. And there were some long-term deals discussed. And ultimately, it was a question of sort of pricing Samberg. And when you consider his value to the team, I'm just putting together a survey at The Athletic right now, and fans voted him the second best defenseman and the most improved player. This is an important cog for the future, but he doesn't put up a lot of points. He wasn't on the power play. Are you going to price him like Slavin? How will you project his growth? All that sort of stuff. And ultimately, they weren't really able to agree to what the right number should be for 6-7 years, whatever the long-term deals that they discussed were. And so at 3 years, at 5.75, I have to think that Samberg gets capital paid next time around. If you're the Winnipeg Jets, I would have hoped for longer term. If you're Samberg, great, you've got this one locked up. It's a longer, you might call it a bridge, and you're probably going to do quite well next time around. So it's great for both parties that they're reunited and the relationship continues. And also, you might have hoped for a little bit longer from Winnipeg's point of view.
Yeah, my read of this is that, and I'm interested in your take on it, that there was that the ask on the Samberg side for a long-term deal was big money. I mean, the way I read the contract, Murat, is that he's getting what would have been the ARB number, like, kind of the 4.25 or whatever it was for, the final year, which was just halfway in between what the Jets offered and what the Sandberg, for arbitration. But then the next 2 seasons is actually more than Jacob Slavin's contract is kicking in this year. Like those 2 UFA deals, those 2 UFA years that they bought, they were actually paying top dollar for. I would have assumed that they would have been willing to extend that beyond, but it's quite clear, and rightfully so, that the Sandberg camp feels like over these next few seasons, we could be seeing some increased offensive contribution and some more points, which at the end of the day, more often than not, is really what's calibrating those contracts up.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot to that. And for Sandberg, he's going to put up points just by playing big top 4 minutes behind Winnipeg's top 6 forward group. He's not going to make it to the power play. He's not going to put up those flashy numbers that even a Neil Pionk on the second unit's going to do. But he's going to put up more points, and he'll have more seasons to bank on. Because one of the limiting factors from Winnipeg's point of view is that he'd only done it once. He was a top 4 defenseman and great at it for 1 year. And usually teams want to see that happen a couple more times before they go big. From Sandberg's point of view, or from his camp's point of view, I think that you've got it surrounded. That, that $6.5 million that he'll get next year and the year after on the $5.75 million cap hit, that's an attempt to price his UFA seasons. If he had gotten just a 1-year arbitration deal, he'd be a free agent next year, and that number goes way up. So Winnipeg did buy some free agency away from him. And I think that the read is this that you're making, that, the ask would be more, that the numbers, they weren't able to agree on what he should be paid on a really long-term deal. That's true. That's a fact in terms of getting Winnipeg and Sandberg's camp to agree to what the right number is if they're going to do something like 7 years. And honestly, it would be well above the 5.75 AAV that they ultimately settled on.
You know what's going to be way more than that? Kyle Connor's new deal. Are you hearing anything? I know you're just back on it. I mean, we just talked to Dave Pagnotta, and he suggested that if they hadn't already, they'll be getting together very shortly to discuss this new deal. There's a willingness to stick around. Obviously, the team wants to sign him. There's thoughts on that, where it might end up, and does this get done before the start of the regular season, Murat? Because to me, as much as, and we can talk about McDavid's situation, he's maybe a different category, but Kaprizov, Eichel, all of that, I would say that the urgency for the Jets for clarity on Kyle Connor is greater than almost any of those markets, because some of the other things that the Winnipeg Jets deal with, and knowing that, in my opinion, they cannot go down the same road they did last year with Nikolai Ehlers losing such an important asset for nothing at the end of the year.
Yeah, you draft a player of that quality, you develop them, they become a star, and, Nikolai Ehlers more of a 5-on-5 star / power play last year. Kyle Connor in another tier of NHL-wide stardom. First line, first power play minutes for a long time. You need to know what is going to happen there, and to let a player like that go for nothing would be really, really painful for the Winnipeg Jets. Just as, or even more painful, I think, for them than the Nikolai Ehlers loss was this summer. So yeah, it's a top priority. It's probably the top priority, and it's something that the Jets have been preparing for well over a year at this point. Like this has been something on their radar for an extensive period of time. I'm not, since returning to work this week, I'm not super plugged in on the situation, but I can say this: Connor has gotten first line minutes, and a big first line minutes, more first line minutes than even first line players on other teams. He's gotten first-line power play minutes for a really long time. He plays even on the PK sometimes. He plays with Mark Scheifele more often than not. This is one of the best situations and best scenarios for him on the ice, I think. And I think that, the sense I've always gotten is that he appreciates that and values it. It's also just an incredible stroke of good fortune from the Winnipeg Jets perspective, just as it was with Connor Hellebuck, that Kyle Connor, in terms of off the ice, he likes his outdoor time. He likes his boating time. He likes his, he's part of that crew in Winnipeg where they value that sort of away from the ice culture. He's not the flashiest guy. He's probably not, I don't know his UFA priorities, but I think the image is that he's not necessarily going to seek out that New York type of deal or any of those things. Kyle Connor, the person, I think fits into Winnipeg very well as well. So all told, I would say I'm a lot more optimistic about a Connor extension heading into this season than I was about a Nikolai Ehlers extension at this time last year. And not that you have any reason to remember specifics, but in my bold predictions for the year, I called Ehlers walking at this time a year ago. I'm not really thinking that that's the case with Kyle Connor.
Great. We've got a bold prediction that a deal is impending any moment now. And no, maybe not any moment.
You missed my lawyer speak? I kind of hemmed and hawed on that, eh?
No, but you know what? Listen, I think that it's something that both sides need to sit down and get clarity on. And I would hope, and maybe I'm not willing to assume, but would certainly hope that common ground can be found. Listen, I don't think that they're going to try and nickel and dime Kyle Connor. He has absolutely done everything that they've asked for him. He stepped up his game in some ways that don't necessarily translate to the score sheet. And I think the organization's appreciative of that. And the bottom line is, this guy scores like nobody else on the Winnipeg Jets, and you get paid for that. And the cap's gone up. There's a number of individuals. The one thing that Pagnotta brought up that could be a challenge, I guess, for the Winnipeg Jets is that you've got all of these guys in similar situations that are NHL superstars. There could be hesitancy to be the first one that signs that deal. Just because often when other deals are signed, all of a sudden the numbers change a little bit. And we've really seen that as inflation is cranked up through free agency over the last 6 months.
Yeah, especially with the cap making its incremental increases, like substantial increases, I should say, players do wait and see and watch. And we're just talking about Sandberg. You don't think K'Andre Miller's deal influenced what the ask from the Sandberg camp was? These are all connected. So I think that that's a good point that you bring up from David Pagnotta. There probably is some of that going on. At the same time, I guess I would be overstating my level of knowledge to think that Kyle Connor wouldn't want to maximize every last little thing. But my perception is really that it's going to be about fit between city and player, and Winnipeg won't be hesitant to really put a big number in front of Kyle Connor. And, my impression has always been that he's been contented in Winnipeg and appreciates what he has here.
Yeah. And you know what? I'll say this too. And there are a bunch of intangibles. Dollars and cents is what everyone's going to be talking about when something is signed, and we break it down that way. But one thing, and this is massive credit to, the organization overall. But when you think of the way that Bones came in, changed the culture, the step forward that the team took under Scott Arniel, and just how tight-knit this group is with so many of the guys that he's come up already committed to long-term deals, it really does seem like the fit has already been established. The guys that he would be looking to the most have already committed to the Winnipeg Jets. And I think that, as opposed to maybe the Ehlers situation, for Kyle Connor, I think that is very important to him. And it certainly is something the Winnipeg Jets have going for them, what they've done off the ice, the nature of that team off the ice, and how big a part of it Kyle Connor has been and hopefully will continue to be.
Yeah, I almost take it from the Gabriel Velarde press Zoom after his extension where, with Scheifele and Hellebuck in place like that, the players themselves can see sort of this 4 to 5 year window of Winnipeg being one of the better teams in the NHL and having a realistic shot to go deep. I wouldn't be surprised if that perception is held by Winnipeg's leading point scorer in Kyle Connor, 97 points last season. So part of, when Winnipeg Jets cornerstones have re-signed, there's usually been that perception that winning is kind of around the corner. And I think back to Blake Wheeler and Connor Hellebuck way back in 2018. This feels more similar to that to me than Ehlers having his perspective on signing with a different organization. Obviously, anything can happen and all that sort of stuff. I would suggest Kyle Connor at 28 years old, turning 29. If there's a 4 to 5 year window where Winnipeg could win and believes that it can win, and he's a part of that, like, you might see a really expensive contract figure for him that he's able to more or less live up to over that period of time. I'm more concerned about what happens if it's 7 years and what number it is, and can Kyle Connor at 35 years old produce in a way that's enough to make up for him being more of an average two-way player, like that sort of thing. And I don't think that that's a realistic concern from Winnipeg's point of view. I think they're all in on this next 4 or 5 years or so.
Murat, we'll spend more time on this topic, I'm sure, until it's done. But as we look ahead to training camp, I wanted to ask you about a couple guys that'll be looking to crack the team from the Manitoba Moose. Brad Lambert, who had a real down year last year, which the entire team did, frankly. And Nikita Chibrikov, who, of course, was injured and wasn't even eligible, wasn't available for even a call-up to be a Black Ace. Who do you think, so it's just the start of September, we won't hold you to this, but right now, who do you think plays more games with the Winnipeg Jets next year? Lambert or Chibrikov?
I'm going to guess Brad Lambert, and I'm going to guess that both of those numbers, both players' games played in the NHL, are quite low this season. Coming off of really average AHL seasons last year, where the Manitoba Moose finished 31 of 32 teams. They had to work so hard for every crack of offense that they found. And guys who, based on their track record of excellence and offensive ability, like a Brad Lambert, where you might hope he could crack things open a little bit more for himself, it wasn't really happening that way. You got a little bit more effectiveness out of the Parker Fords of the world at that level, guys who could sort of bulldoze their way or bulldog their way into dangerous spots. And what you saw Winnipeg go out and do this year, or the Manitoba Moose under Craig Heisinger go out and do, is add a lot of veteran, capable, strong two-way AHL players who can score. I think that's part of the, okay, we're going to take one more year. We're going to keep Lambert and Chibrikov and Braden Yeager and Colby Barlow, I suppose, and all of this, and give them the best situation we can possibly give them in an attempt to really set them on the right track to be top 6 type prospects again. And then I just see so many NHL players in the way. I would be amazed, and credit to anybody who changes this and just proves me wrong. I'd be amazed if either of those players break camp with the Jets.
Interesting stuff. We would be paying attention to all of those, younger players to see how they perform and show up, and particularly Braden Yeager, and I guess Colby Barlow, now that he's going to be a pro as well. The thought process, I think, amongst many fans, that if someone is going to crack the lineup, it'll be someone that has been around a little bit longer, and both of those players would seemingly have the opportunity. But I'm sort of with you, especially when you look at the Nyquist signing. I mean, you can sort of figure out who's in most of the spots already, and it does make it an uphill grind. But your point about what they've done with the Moose in the offseason, I think, is important. I think that, I've heard from some people in the organization that they want to make sure that a season like last year for the Moose does not happen again. Because it can be a really long season when you're getting your ass kicked night in and night out, especially for younger players. And you want them not only to feel like they can be at their best and the team is competitive, but you're playing meaningful, important games. You're having the opportunity to play in the Calder Cup playoffs before you graduate to the Stanley Cup playoffs. And just, it's been trending in the wrong direction. And many of those signings that maybe weren't splashy when you're thinking about the NHL can make a big time difference, hopefully, for the Moose. So those players, especially the ones that weren't there last year, like a Yeager or a Barlow, are coming into a situation where it's not, you're just looking at the calendar every year and seeing how close you are to the end of the season. You're excited about the game that's next on the schedule.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense to me. And it's about putting people in positions to have success, right? I think that team was treading water at best through a lot of last season. And you don't really want those for players that you want to have meaningful NHL careers in the long haul. You don't want their spirit to break, or you don't want them to go off of their own program or try to do things by themselves. And I think most of what I've heard has been actually really positive about the dispositions and character, but you don't want to run multiple seasons like that together. Great by you to have that from some people in the organization saying, hey, we need that to be a one-off. It's like, I don't know, maybe a lot of fans, if you grew up playing, can relate to this. Like if you ever played a level above, like you were called up to a different age group or something like that, and it feels like things are a little bit quick, and then you eventually catch up or you don't. Like the Moose players who I think would be viable NHL prospects were like probably playing in that almost disadvantaged position by not being supported by elite AHL players last season. And ideally they do turn that around.
Murat, it is so good to have you back, my friend. I can't wait to read your latest in The Athletic when it's coming up, and of course continue our conversations throughout the season, but especially seeing you. It's only a couple weeks. We'll be down at the Iceplex getting things going. Let's get it rolling.
Yeah, let's do it. So glad to be back. And yeah, my first one's going up tomorrow. So we're back at it here.
Looking forward to it, my friend. Thanks for doing this. Glad you had such a great summer. Now get ready for a great season coming up in just a couple weeks.
Thanks, Hess.
Appreciate it. There's Murat Atesh. Great to have him back on the program tomorrow in The Athletic. He returns with the latest on his coverage of the Winnipeg Jets as we count down to training camp coming up. We're going to check in with Tony Jones of the Blue Bombers in a few minutes. Really looking forward to that. Cannot wait for the game on Saturday. The rematch between the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Hey, if you're getting ready for the Banjo Bowl, this is a game that you got to be in blue for, Bomber fans. I mean, this is more so than any others, and Bomber fans usually step up quite well. But, whenever you got the Green Riders in town, it is very important to make it very clear which side you're on. Royal Sports will get you hooked up for that. Tons of great Blue Bomber gear, including many exclusives that you won't find anywhere else. And, of course, Royal's also a very busy place right now because hockey season is here, and Royal is the hockey superstore for over 50 years, especially if you've got younger kids just getting involved in the game. Royal's got the staff of players working there to make sure you get the right fit, the best equipment that makes the most sense for the player at the age level and skill level that he's at. Get ready to drop the puck on the season. Royal Sports, 750 Pembina Highway. And make sure to keep your eyes out on their Instagram at Royal Sports Winnipeg for the latest merchandise drops and sale information, including that big tent sale coming up at Royal Sports. Hey, Blue Jays back at it tomorrow. We got NFL kickoff Friday. We've got the Chiefs Chargers. Saturday, Banjo Bowl and a CFL triple header. And Sunday, the first NFL Sunday. Who's got it better than us? Well, maybe the people that are getting together with their crew at Boston Pizza to watch all the big games, ice cold schooners, world famous BP wings, gourmet pizzas, and all the games on the big screens. If you're getting together with your gang, make it at your local BP lounge. And if you are staying at home, you can always get it hot and fresh to your door by ordering online at bostonpizza.com. All right, let's give a big cheers to our friends at Winnipeg's favorite local brewery, Little Brown Jug, and then welcome in Tony Jones from the Blue and Gold.
You train day in and day out, learning new techniques, approaching new concepts, and living out the thrill of achieving your goals. Building a craft beer is no different. While you spend your hours on the ice, we spend ours here, brewing our trademark beer. Again, and again. Here's to pushing the status quo and challenging ourselves to build something memorable. 1919 by Little Brown Jug.
All right, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers were back on the practice field today at Princess Auto Stadium, getting ready for the rematch against the Riders in the Banjo Bowl on Saturday. And it is a pleasure to welcome in Bomber linebacker Tony Jones to the program. Tony, what's going on? It's great to have you on Winnipeg Sports Talk.
Thank you so much for having me. Doing good. How you doing?
I'm doing well. We were all out there in Regina, had a hell of a time with an incredible representation of Blue Bomber fans, and obviously another classic between these two teams. And now looking forward to Saturday. What was it like getting back with the fellas today on the practice field after a quick turnaround after that crazy game in Sask on the weekend?
Definitely a quick turnaround. Whenever you lose, a tight game like that against a rival, you always want to get back to it and, get your rematch in. So a lot of guys were fired up to get back on the field, and, we're looking forward to the Banjo Bowl.
You know what? I mean, it was such a crazy game, which often they are. You can throw the records out half the time, at Labor Day. A great start. Saskatchewan really kind of took over the game for a while, and then a crazy comeback at the end of a game that had everything. I mean, listen, it's tough to lose a close game, but, especially I thought the defensive performance was a real step forward. I mean, holding Trevor Harris to under 220 yards and 1 touchdown, did a pretty good job holding that rushing game, although they continued to bring at it. I mean, what were your takeaways from a performance by the team, which was one of the better ones of the year? Unfortunately, you just didn't get the result that you went there for.
Yeah, most definitely. We felt like we had a good game plan going into it. We felt like we had, some things to throw off, Trevor and that offense. And we felt like as an execution standpoint, we felt like we did what we wanted to do. But, obviously we fell short. But, I feel like, we're trending in the right direction into, ways and things, how we can throw off, our opponents, things like that. So, whenever you can hold a guy, like Trevor Harris, who's, an elite quarterback who, gets that offense going over there, that's obviously a plus for us. So, like I said, whenever you can slow a guy like that down, we know we're trending in the right direction. Obviously, we wanted to, come out on the other end, but, we're happy that we get to play them back to back. So we're looking forward to this Banjo Bowl.
Hey, what was it like being out there? I mean, you've been in some of these big games before, but I mean, I thought just the entire weekend, I mean, you just looked anywhere around Regina and there was an incredible representation of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And listen, the stadium was incredible. Rider fans showed up. The atmosphere was top notch. But I mean, there was a lot of blue in that crowd. I'm sure you guys are really feeling the support from the faithful that made the drive.
Oh, definitely. It was electrifying. It was electric for sure. Whenever, just we get there, the day before, and like you said, you see a lot of blue, you see a lot of our fans traveling, and, it just wants us to play that much harder in the sense that, we have a fan base that, live, eat, and sleep, Blue Bomber football. So, whenever they, take that ride and, travel with us, man, it's, obviously, like I said, we wanted to bring the win home, but, it was electrifying. We came up short, but, we're ready to, play in front of our home crowd and, put it all together.
Hey, as one of the defensive leaders, I wanted to ask you about a particular play in the game. The Bombers, on special teams, you get that huge fumble. The team goes down, puts it in the end zone, and all of a sudden it is a 1-score game. There's the third down play that ended up being the quick kick from Trevor Harris that was potentially a game-ending safety, then it wasn't. From your perspective as one of the defensive leaders, they bring the offense out. I mean, what's going on there within the group? And how did you see that whole play do? And is that something that you guys were watching for? Or was that just something that kind of came out of nowhere and you had to deal with it in the moment?
Well, our coaches do a good job of, pulling up, old film or, film that's passed along that, for certain situations like these moments. So we're well prepared. So, we're not surprised when they do pop up. We've talked about, the kick from the quarterback, numerous times throughout the year. So we weren't really, shook by that. But in the sense that, with a guy like Trevor Harris at quarterback, you got to play it honest. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, if he's, out there on 3rd and short, 3rd and long, or whatever it is, we still got to, play defense first. So when he came out and kicked the ball, it kind of threw us off a little bit. But, at the end of the day, we went over and we knew what we were supposed to do. But honestly, it was just a great kick by Trevor. You know what I mean? I mean, it bounced maybe 2-3 yard line and, could have been a safety, but, all praise to him. And that was a great kick by him. And, it couldn't have been a better time for that.
Yeah, no, listen, he did. He nailed the execution of that play. But then, it had been a long time. I mean, the way that there were the ups and downs of that game, you had the great start. And then Saskatchewan really kind of showed up for the game and kind of took over for a while. But, I mean, you guys made a game of it. What was it like once the near-death experience of the potential safety was off the board? What was it like on the bench watching the Bomber offense cook late in the game to potentially score the touchdown, which happened, and tie the game?
Yeah, it was definitely a sign of relief when we got the call that it wasn't going to be a safety. So we knew that we had a possession that we can go down and tie the game and take it to overtime. So once that cleared off the board, we were fired up for our offense to go down there and make a play. We believe in our offense to go down and make the play when it's supposed to be made. We got a big pass interference call down the field, which put us in scoring range pretty quick. So once that happened, I mean the energy just changed even more. We were fired up even more. But like I said, we scored. Wish we can get that 2-point conversion back, you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, it's football and it happens. But like I said, we're fired up for this week.
Hey, what, we know every year, I mean, you head out to Regina, have a big weekend, you come back, you figure out what you got to do, and then Saturday you're back at it for the Banjo Bowl for the fans. You guys have known all year long this was going to be a 2-game series back-to-back. How different is it getting back to practice, knowing that you're going right up against the same team? And, I mean, is there more video work? Is there less? Or is it basically just getting out there and focusing on the things that you guys feel you need to step up to win a game? I'm just interested in how the normal week preparation for opponent that you didn't just play might change to what you guys are going through this week.
In a sense, I can say everything. You know what I mean? Whenever you lose, a tight game like that against a very good team, a team that's, at the top of the leaders board and, in the standings, it just makes us that much more dialed in because we knew we had that game. We knew we could have won. We knew we should have won. So at the end of the day, I feel like, as us players, we come into this week, just a little bit more attention to detail, eliminate the minor errors that we did and, just go out there and, play our brand of football. At the end of the day, that's what we can, control what we can control and, eliminate the mistakes that we did make. At the end of the day, it's football. Everyone wants to be perfect, but, things happen. But at the end of the day, we just got to go out here and, just eliminate each minor mistake that we did have and go out there and just play all 4 quarters and, hopefully come out on the other end.
Well, listen, I mean, the defense has been through a lot this year. I mean, some tough injuries, some real turnover at the secondary position, which I think has put more pressure on the defensive front, players like yourself, Brett Cranby and Holm in the back. All those things considered, though, listen, you look at the points that were put up by both teams against 2 really good defenses, but you kind of dive into the numbers. I mean, I would argue that was one of the best defensive performances of the year. I mean, do you feel like this team, with the changes that have been made, is sort of gelling right now and the best football, the Blue Bomber defense is ahead of you?
Definitely. I can definitely say that. We're trending definitely upward in the right direction. You know what I mean? Whenever you have, crucial injuries to, players that are starting or once starters in this league, it kind of, puts a duel kind of like in the sense of, the communication and, at the end of the day, though, it's, next man up. So when things like that happen, it's out of our control. It's football. People get hurt. But, in a sense, when we bring, new guys come into the defense, it's, we have to bring them along and catch them up to where we are as a defense. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, sharpening those guys up and, bringing them to, just the little extra meeting times or just getting with the players or meet with, your meeting group, coaches, doing the little things to catch up where we are as a defense. And we feel like, in the part of the season we are right now, we feel like, we're trending in the right direction. And like you said, we really felt like we executed our game plan, at a high level this past game. So at the end of the day, we can only learn from it and grow from it.
Tony Jones of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers is our guest on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Tony, I just want to step back from the focus of everyone being Saturday afternoon and just talk to you a little bit about your time here in Winnipeg. I mean, second season now, you've become a real fan favorite, an important player on this defense, night in and night out. overall, how much are you enjoying being a Bomber and part of this team that has really set such a high standard over the last number of years?
Man, I really do love it, and I mean that. You know what I mean? The Blue Bombers, opened me up with open arms when I got here, and it was just such team led and just a tight brotherhood who just we all care for each other to wanting more from each other. You know what I mean? So in a sense that it just feels like one big family over here, and we all hold each other to a high standard. We all want each other to be great. We all want each other to make the plays that come to us. So I mean, it's just felt like home to me. You know what I mean? In the sense that when I did get the call to come out here, and I had a few others that were hitting up my agent, but when Blue Bombers came into the picture, it was just like I wanted to be a Blue Bomber. You hear about the Blue Bomber way, the brotherhood, and how everyone is together. There is no individuals. Everyone just holds each other to a high standard, man. And you really don't I mean, you hear about it from the outside, but once you really get here, you feel it, and it's just so like this is the place where you want to be. You know what I mean? It's just in the sense that just the learning aspect to everything of what they want, to the T of the specifics, to attention to detail, just everything about just being here is just, I loved it here. And, I want to continue my career here.
Well, and speaking of that, I mean, it just seems like over the last few years, there's been such a special connection between the fan base and this team. I mean, listen, we're in a golden era of Blue Bomber football, and the asses in seats and the consecutive sellouts tell you all you need to know. But we saw it in spades on Sunday in Regina with all that blue there. It kind of took over the downtown. I mean, from a player's perspective, how much do you guys feed off the crowd, and how special is that connection with the fans that are filling that stadium every single time you guys show up?
It's an amazing feeling. I can tell you that. You know what I mean? Our fans are the best fans in the league by far. We sell out every home game, almost every home game, and it's just electrifying. You know what I mean? When you're playing in front of all your fans that cheering you on, count on you. So it's just. It amps you up to a point where it's just like, you got to be controlled at the same time, because, you're just so caught up in, the atmosphere and just how everything is going, how the crowd is going. But at the end of the day, that's to our advantage. So, I mean, I love running out of that tunnel in front of our crowd, just seeing all the blue and just everything about it is just gets you fired up and ready to go. And obviously, like I said, it's an advantage, when we're on defense and, the offense can barely hear, or they're doing their silent count to hike the ball. It draws some difficulties for the offenses. So, I mean, that just gives us, an advantage, and it fires us up to, to go out there and, put a show on for our fans.
Tony Jones, our guest here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Well, speaking of putting on a show, there is a job to do, and that's getting one back on the Saskatchewan Roughriders on Saturday afternoon. Just before we go, Tony, I mean, obviously it was a tough loss. You guys have regrouped, come back. How badly do you and the fellas want it to finish up with Willie J strumming the banjo there with that trophy at the end of the game on Saturday?
Hey, that's the plan. We came out on the wrong side, this past weekend. But like I said, we're super fired up to get back to it. Everyone was super hype and super locked in this week, because we know we had that game, and we know that they're one of the top teams in this league. And like I said, we know that we should have came out on the other end. So whenever we get that back-to-back against, a big elite team, we know that, we want to come out on the other side. So we're doing, whatever we can this week to, minimize the errors and, come out on top.
Tony, this was awesome. We wanted to have you on for a while. We really appreciate you jumping on today. Good luck to you and the fellas in front of what will be an absolute madhouse on Saturday at Princess Auto Stadium. Continued success and improvement for the defense, and let's do this again later on this season. Appreciate you, my man.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
Good stuff. Tony Jones, 33 in blue and gold, Bombers and Riders in the annual Banjo Bowl Saturday afternoon at Princess Auto Stadium. All right, we're going to check in with our fantasy expert from fantasypoints.com, Thomas Tipple, as we get ready for NFL kickoff tomorrow. In the meantime, though, just before we get to that, I do want to throw out to all of you our why not question of the day. And I was honest when I said that to Tony. I mean, you look at the numbers. I mean, holding Trevor Harris, under 220 yards passing in that game. I mean, Andre Ouellette, despite 18 carries, under 90 yards. I really do feel like that was one of the best performances of the Bomber defense all season. Your thoughts on the defense right now heading into the Banjo Bowl, and do you share the feeling that they are progressing in a positive motion? And the defense, the concerns that maybe we had about a month ago, have those been waylaid? Let us know in the chat for the Why Not question of the day. Right now, we'll get to a little fan feedback coming up in a few minutes. And by the way, much more CFL content coming up. We'll finish up and at 3:15 right out of Winnipeg Sports Talk, the latest edition of CFL 110 drops with myself and Jeff Hamilton. All right, do want to thank our friends at Breezy Bend for their great support of Winnipeg Sports Talk. We're counting down to the Ryder Cup in about 3 weeks. We've still got some great golf left on the season. If you're thinking about making a long-term home for you and your family at one of Winnipeg's top private courses, check out Breezy Bend, home of this year's Manitoba Open. Give our pal Corey Johnson a call at the clubhouse, 895-7205, or check out for more information online at breezybend.ca. We will hold off talking to Cinnabon Downs because we got some picks to make coming up in a couple of minutes. But right now, let's get ready for NFL kickoff. The drafting's just about done. The Cowboys and the Eagles getting after it tomorrow. Let's welcome in Thomas Tipple from fantasypoints.com. And folks, don't forget to check out the site when we're looking for fantasy or betting advice. We're using the Fantasy Points Data Suite, the best research tool in the world. If you want to check it out or grab it, you can use the promo code WST10 to sign up and dominate your league. Thomas, what's up? Are you ready for some football tomorrow or what?
Hold on, I'm not getting his microphone. One sec.
Hold on a sec. We just got to I could hear you, but it was really, really quiet. And usually you have the most elite setup potentially of any of our guests.
Okay.
We're good now.
We're good now? Perfect. So, now that basically all of the takes have been done, the players have been drafted, we're getting ready to go. I'm interested in your perspective for our listeners on what you're looking at when you're setting lineups, or even if we're going to talk about daily fantasy for people that just want to jump on like DraftKings lineups and play with us. How do you prepare for the week, and what are the key things that you're looking for when you're making some maybe tough decisions for your starting lineup?
Week one is always throwing to the wind. You start your studs. Don't worry about matchups. In terms of week-to-week fantasy, that is. Daily fantasy, there's obviously a ton of different edges that you can get into. I have some stuff for you on that if you would like. I have it prepared. You can get all this stuff at fantasypoints.com that I'm going to be talking about from different articles like the Game Hub and all the other content. So I'm going to give you some examples of that. But week one, for your regular fantasy football, start your studs. Don't worry about projections. This is week one, and anything can happen. We can say what teams are going to be good on defense and have hope for offense. We don't know anything except for what we've already been preparing for all year. You do not spend all that time researching and drafting just to tinker with your lineup in week one. Start your studs, trust your gut, and enjoy the ride in week one.
I find, obviously I'm a big sports bettor. And just going back over the last 20 years, the graveyard that week one can be.
Yes.
For both wagers. I mean, there's always a team or two that half your suicide pool is on that gets blown up in week one. Like, there really is a ton of uncertainty, which actually kind of makes this week so interesting in the NFL, Thomas. 10 of the 16 games have point spreads of 3 or less. There's really only 2 big spreads. That's tomorrow night's Cowboys-Eagles game and the Titans going into Denver on Sunday. I got to say, props to the schedule maker for setting up an incredible week one, finishing with honestly could be one of the games of the year, certainly on paper, with that Sunday nighter between the Bills and Ravens.
Yeah, we talked about this on last night's Dynasty Points of what I'm expecting from Bills Ravens, and I'm expecting to have my heart broken. It's just the Ravens and their week one games. They can go either way, but another thing to remember is there's a lot of star players that don't play in the preseason. Lamar Jackson doesn't step foot on a field in the preseason. Josh Allen barely steps foot in the preseason. Joe Burrow, for some reason, was out there in the preseason, and you saw what happened to him. He got absolutely smacked around. But these star players might take a week, 2 weeks. We have expectations for the Minnesota Vikings and J.J. McCarthy and this lighted up offense. They're probably going to try to establish a bit more of a running game in weeks 1 and 2 and ease McCarthy in. In my opinion, the NFL season doesn't really ramp up until week 3, week 4, when teams kind of know what they are. But I think there's going to be some very, very interesting games like this Bengals-Browns game. I think this game absolutely lights it up. One of my favorite games, a 47.5. I'm thinking it's going over. The Bengals couldn't stop a Division II college team to save their lives. The Browns, even though it's a bit of a laugher with what's happening with them, I like the Browns offense with somebody like Joe Flacco. He's been the starter with them before, and we have seen them absolutely go crazy. Flacco gives the passing game more juice. He's thrown for 250-plus yards in 13 of 16 starts since 2022. He absolutely airs it out. The Bengals gave up the 4th most passing touchdowns per game at 1.8 and 6th most fantasy points per game at 19.8 to quarterbacks. This season, he's probably going to be one of the most played DFS picks on DraftKings, but it is hard to deny that somebody like Flacco gives a game like this a boost. So many great things to watch, but again, no one really knows until we know, which is kind of a funny thing to say in this business of spending 5 to 6 months in an offseason preparing. But really, you're taking all that analysis and you're trusting your gut. You drafted your players in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th round for a reason. You play those players. Also enjoy a mostly healthy lineup. It could be the only time this year.
Yeah, a great point on that. One of the things that as Remis is particularly into it to DFS, we kind of talked about, if you're looking at games to sort of stack and get into, one of the easiest things is look at the point spread and the totals for the game. You want to get in games that are going to be more high scoring. And no surprise that the biggest number on the board is that Bills-Ravens game at 50. I had to laugh, though. The Jets-Steeler game is 38.5. Like, that's like a preseason total right now. Is that just the state of affairs for both of these teams going in as it pertains to fantasy potential and fantasy goodness?
I have to tell you that this game is going to be hard to watch. I wouldn't watch. I have to watch every game. That is part of my job. This game might make me put my 2 weeks in. It is going to test me in every way possible. Elijah Vera Tucker now done for the year again, guard for the Jets. Now the offensive line for the Jets is already getting hit hard. You got the pass rush of the Steelers, not to mention possibly the second best secondary in football in Pittsburgh now, with Jalen Ramsey heading over there. You got big play Slay playing in Pittsburgh as well. We all know that Justin Fields, we talked about this on the first show I did with he struggles as a passer, and now he's going up against this team. I am just hoping he rushes for 95 yards out of spite, because remember, we've got a QB versus their former teams. And I know, especially in terms of, say, Justin Fields, he wants to prove himself, but there's nobody with a bigger ego in sports than Aaron Rodgers. He's going to want to make it all about him. The thing is that Jets defense is no slouch either. I think there's going to be minimal offense in this game. It deserves the lowest bit, but they're not. When you look at a game like this, there's still some potential for Studley activity in fantasy and DFS. Jalen Warren on passing reps, obviously a hyper-targeted DK Metcalf. If he can, actually bring his hands and not bricks towards the end zone. And of course, I'm looking for Breece Hall versus Braylon Allen. What is the snap share going to be? We don't know, but we are hoping that Justin Fields can at least hit Breece Hall out of the backfield. Garrett Wilson, I am worried about this week.
Just on that note, as we kind of get into first week, and there's a lot of people, fantasy football continues to grow and grow, and some people are veterans. They've been doing it for, 20 years. Others are, just starting in their first or second year. Here's a question for you on that, just for advice, or just speaking to the importance of week one and the importance of the week one waiver wire. You sort of nailed out. We'll learn more this week than any other week because of the unknown and how long everyone has been. How important is it for your season-long fantasy to be diligent and all over the waiver wire, and how aggressive you might want to be if you're using your free agent budget, depending on who's there and who pops this week?
I like that you said free agent budget, because I often have to explain the difference between waiver claims and free agent budget. Please, if you are playing season-long fantasy or dynasty, best ball, please get away from the waiver priority style of free agent or waiver claim.
Amen to that.
Please, it's the year 2025, and we really need to get out of the Stone Ages. It is the optimal method. It really comes down, though, to answer your question, it really comes down to how deep your league is. If you have a bench of 8 to 10, it may not be as important. If you're in a start 10, it may not be as important, because there are different players that can change leagues off of. It was James Robinson a couple of years ago with the Jaguars. It was Puka Nacua in other previous seasons. It was going to be Corey Krosky-Merritt before Big Fantasy decided to take off with him. But that's not to say that somebody like Chris Rodriguez, the other running back in Washington, isn't out there on your waiver wire. It is so rare that you get the opportunity to find a multi-week starter on the waivers. You should be aggressive. The guys like Thornton in Las Vegas, now listed as a starter. Canadian, A.O. Manor in Tennessee, listed as a starter. These are the types of players that you should, if not drafted, you should be targeting on waiver wires, because they can, even if they get the opportunity to put up a 10, 11-point game somewhere down the line, you stash those players on the bench. Aside from that, handcuffs, it's spot start tight ends, and you call it a day. You want to spend your fab on the big hitters, the big swings. I'm not worried about a Josh Palmer. Canadian shout out, but let's be honest, he hasn't been the answer in Buffalo, or sorry, not in Buffalo, but with the Chargers. He had opportunity after opportunity. Now he goes over there. They re-signed Gabe Davis. That waiver wire claim is already put to bed, in my opinion. There are traps on the waiver wire. You want to be aggressive with the players that you think are going to be able to give you week winning upside. We do not care about 6 points. We want 20. So when you find that opportunity, you have to be hyper aggressive, because your league mates will also be hyper aggressive. These are 20% type bids.
Hey, listen, before we go, just kind of on that note of, finding out information from week one, there's been, you mentioned that Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, who was, I think, a 7th-round pick. There was a lot of guys pretty hyped for him when, we were doing an auction or doing a draft. I would just pull him out because we don't really know who or what he is at the National Football League level. Is there a few guys that were big risers through draft season that you're going to be paying particular attention to on this weekend to kind of see how that compares to what the perception was going into the year?
I'll say this. For me, to answer the question directly, not really, because the way I play fantasy football, especially in a dynasty perspective, is I am constantly plugged into the market. I am constantly plugged into how things are changing. So to me, these things have changed quite a bit. I will say what people should be watching for if you are playing dynasty or if you are looking to make trades, I would be looking at the different position battles that shifted ADP. I can give you some examples. I mentioned Braylon Allen and Breece Hall. I want to pay attention to that. Braylon Allen has had off-season hype, has not necessarily reflected it in his ADP, but he is a player whose ADP can absolutely skyrocket along with his value. You look at the Jacksonville Jaguars backfield, Bashal Tutin, Tank Bigsby, ETN. Who is it going to be? We do not know, and we may not know. It could be an absolute triangle of doom type scenario in Jacksonville with Liam Cohen, but I'm willing to bet there's somebody. Dylan Sampson is another player with the Judkins situations, even though he could be signing here in the relative future. Of course, as they say, it could be today. It's a quote, today, tomorrow. It could be earlier in the week, if not a little bit later. Thanks for the help. But you've got Sampson, who is another running back who gets a prime matchup. We talked about the Bengals defense. Sampson could get 8 to 10 carries. I think it's a Jerome Ford week. But if Sampson carves out a role, now you know that he is a player who's going to be drafted higher next year, who's going to gain value because running backs that are rookies that get the chance to play even at all go up in value. Look at somebody like a Kamani Vidal, who was a nobody last year, gets to play, has the one big play, and all of a sudden he is a must-add, and he did nothing else for the rest of his time. I think Jackson Dart is another one, not something to watch in week 1, but watching for him for when he plays. I want to see the Houston Texans wide receivers. I want to see Jaden Higgins. I want to see what he can do. I want to see what Noel can do, or Noel, what he can do, and I want to see Thornton and Jack Besh in Vegas. Those are the kind of players that I am looking forward to most, because it's those position battles and those players going to be the ones that have the greatest opportunity to rise in ADP. Also, special shout out to one Zach Charbonnet, because I believe should Ken Walker slip at all and or get banged up at all, this Clint Kubiak outside zone rushing system is going to feed families. You're going to want to be watching for somebody like Zach Charbonnet, and then pay attention to Brandon Ayuk as well. He's fallen over the last couple of weeks into round 11 in dynasty startups. If you're still drafting, going off the board at wide receiver 48. Ricky Pearsall has jumped him now, something I kind of predicted a couple of weeks ago. He's going at wide receiver 36. Well, soon as Brandon Ayuk steps on the field, you bet your bottom dollar that Brandon Ayuk's value is going to go up. Injured veterans, slow starting veterans, and these position battle rookies are what you need to be paying attention to early in week 1 and week 2. Same with the offenses that have had big changes. Someone like Dave Canales has had big changes in Carolina. We mentioned the Jaguars. What is the Bucks going to look like without Godwin early and a rookie Egbuka and Baker Mayfield, who turns the ball over more than any quarterback in football, but yet still somehow has that, quote, dog in him enough to carry this offense? Can he do it for a third season after losing multiple offensive coordinators in back-to-back years in Canales and Cohen head coaching jobs? There is lots to be watching for in terms of week 1 of the NFL schedule. It can be overwhelming. I understand that. But keep note, it's a lot of fun. Stay locked in with fantasypoints.com, where we have so many different ways for you to stay up to date in terms of podcasts and content. We have 18 podcasts a week over at fantasypoints.com. We have more than 8 to 9 live streams going weekly as soon as Monday with fantasypoints.com. There is literally nothing in the fantasy football betting side of things that we do not have covered. And of course, even for your winners of the all-in contest, there is a fully functioning Fantasy Points Discord, which you can get into for free if you're into Dynasty. You just need a free account at fantasypoints.com. You can head to that website. There are instructions there. You can also find me on Discord, on wherever you need to find me, on Instagram, on Discord, on Twitter, at L Nostradamus. That's ELTHOMAS. I am on Discord 24/7. I am on Twitter 24/7. If you want access to that Discord, please reach out. I will help you get set up. Aside from that, Huss, if there's anything else you want to talk about football with me, I am ready to go.
Dude, you are our guy, man. It's been so much fun having you on the show, and I can't wait to do this throughout the year. You know what? I think, I'll often try and just get to a listener question or two. We're up against it, but this is a quick one. And by the way, as Thomas mentioned, this is your last call. With the season starting tomorrow, your last call. If you haven't already entered the contest for the premium fantasypoints.com subscriptions. Go to winnipegsportstalk.com/contest right now. And over the course of Thursday and Friday with the opening games, we'll be giving away those 5 memberships. But listen, just quickly, Rob Mahoney, I think many people are wondering this. They usually had to use a high pick on some of these rookies if you want to get them. Even in redraft leagues, he asked, how confident should we be about starting rookies such as Marion Hampton and Travion Henderson in week 1?
Well, I've been reading your comment section, and I've been answering some as I go here on the show. And I got to tell you, full confidence. Don't trust the depth chart. The NFL depth charts do not matter. Teams just put that stuff out for media purposes. They don't want to show their hand. You play these studs. These players were drafted highly. Their teams are going to rely on them. If you're telling me the New England Patriots are going to slow walk Travion Henderson because they have a vet like Ramondre Stevenson, no. He is possibly their most explosive player on offense, and coordinators like Josh McDaniels are going to highlight their best players. This is just how it's going to be. Keep in mind, Alvin Kamara in his rookie year was listed as the 3rd running back on that depth chart. Guess what? Ended up breaking fantasy football. They do this constantly. This is the Caleb Johnson conundrum. This is the Omarion Hampton for a while. We don't even know if it's Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt because they listed him as 4th. They had Jeremy McNichols ahead of him, and then it comes out that they have no running back listed as the RB1. It's just how teams do this all the time. Rookies have to, quote, earn it, and it's very frustrating. Full confidence in these guys. Just remember that they are rookies. There can be varying production. Remember, Bijan Robinson is one of the most highly touted rookie running backs in years, possibly since McCaffrey, more than Taylor, more than any of these other backs, and even he had an up and down rookie season at times. They are still rookies. It can take time. But who are you going to start over them? You drafted them again in the 4th and 5th rounds of your drafts. They were drafted to be those guys. Play your guys.
Thomas, enjoy NFL kickoff tomorrow. This is as good a week 1 as I can remember. Needless to say, folks, set your lineups and get ready for some fun. The season is officially here. Good luck to all, and make sure to check out fantasypoints.com and get in the contest. And again, you can use WST10 for a promo code if you're looking for any of the subscriptions there. El Nostradamus on X. Enjoy the kickoff to the season, my man. We'll talk to you next week. Thanks for doing this.
Anytime. Appreciate you guys having me.
Right on. There's Thomas Tipple, our fantasy expert from fantasypoints.com. All right, let's get to some fan feedback for fansfirst.ca, your number 1 spot for buying and selling Winnipeg tickets on the resale market, where what you see is what you pay, no added fees, and Banjo Bowl tickets are pretty scarce. You're looking to get some, fansfirst.ca will have those for you as well. I love this. This is from Thomas, echoing what he had said before. Never trust a depth chart. Bridget, this is tough. Bridget, I don't follow NFL. Is my old home New Orleans Saints any good this year? Bridget, this might be a great year to not follow the NFL if you're a Saints fan. They're going to be terrible. I think there's a very good chance that Saints fans will be fired up for the draft next year, as they will be number 1. Rick Book, this is an underreported story on this big Micah Parsons trade. Kenny Clark will shore up the run somewhat, but he's pushing 30. Short term, the run defense for the Dallas Cowboys will be better coming out of that trade. But, man, they're going to miss Micah Parsons running over the quarterback. A few other nice comments in there. People wondering if Travis Hunter went high in fantasy. I think he was diminished a little bit because of him playing both sides. You're not getting defensive points. But listen, the guy's a freak. He was drafted and relatively high, I think, in most leagues. Keep your coming. And don't forget, winnipegsportstalk.com/contest. If you're a fantasy football player, this is a no-brainer of all time to sign up for this contest. We'll give away the packages tomorrow and Friday when we're talking NFL before the opening night primetime games in Philly and in Brazil. Again, fan feedback brought to you by fans first, by fans, for fans, no fees. All right, we got 5 minutes before CFL 110 starts. Let's quickly get to the Cool Bet lines. And latest in the Canadian Football League is this, and Jeff and I will make our picks coming up during CFL 110. BC Lions, 4.5-point favorites over the Ottawa Redblacks. The Hamilton Tiger Cats now 3.5-point favorites over the Montreal Alouettes. Bombers and Riders, straight up pick 'em. -110 on either side of the money line. And the Calgary Stampeders, 6-point favorites over the Edmonton Elks. Shane Bieber on the hill tonight for the Toronto Blue Jays. The Blue Jays -159 on the money line. Run line is -1.5. I think I'm going to hit the run line for the Jays after that insane game last night. Hopefully Shane Bieber can stake them out to a nice big lead, have the Jays win by margin. Also like Bieber over 5.5 strikeouts tonight, and Bo Bichette over 1.5 total bases. We can tell you right now that we've got some great tennis coming up a little later on, and hoping for our guy Felix Auger-Aliassime.
He won.
It's done now?
Yeah, he's in the semifinal.
Woo! All right. Great stuff for Felix Auger-Aliassime. First semifinal in a Grand Slam, I believe, in 3 or 4 years for Felix. So that is good stuff. All right. Assiniboia Downs tonight, ladies' night. Get out there. They got prizes for best hats, all sorts of neat stuff. You can check out their Instagram for more details on that. I'm stuttering because of what happened last night at the track. Remis, how did you do?
I went over. You didn't tell me before we started the show, so I'm guessing, did you have a win, or I didn't hit anything?
I did hit one of my bets.
Oh.
And it was the triactor in race 4.
Oh, no.
$111.65.
No,
Damn straight I did.
No,
I
you
had
didn't.
I had the 267.
Come on.
And 7 was Highlander Honey, which when we were doing it was 6-1. It ended up going off at 16-1, paid $34.40 for the win. And of course, I had it boxed with 2 of the other favorites. So yeah, $111.65. Big one for yours truly.
So mad. I thought I was going to catch you. And you do this again, like in the last month?
Hey, listen, you were right there. We've still got time, though. It's going through until October. But anyways, what do you got today?
I can't even say my picks. I'm so mad. I thought I was gonna Wes, I'm catching up to you. I'm like $30 away. I guess I got to try to hit a big one myself.
I was due for a big one.
You were. So you're way up. That's a big win for you. Wow, I'm pretty rattled here, but that's fine. I'll get my picks out. We got to do this quickly for CFL 110. So let me just read these out too. My apologies. Okay, should I just go through them quick?
Yeah.
I got 4, 5, 6, 7. Race 4. Horse 3 to win. Wild Queenie. That's a bit of a longer shot. Race 5. 2, 4, 5. Trifecta box. Churchill and Go-Go Tavaline. Adams Creed. Race 6. 1, 7. Exacta box. Waiting by the Nile and Awfully Special. Awfully Special, a bit of a longer shot there. And race 7, 1, 5, 6. Charming Charlie, TR's first. And it was this big, TR's first. That's your strategy. The 2 favorites and a longer shot to try to boost up the pay.
Yeah, and then every now and then that longer shot wins, and you got to win like last night. All right, I am going to go. Got 2 in already. I think I'll go with... let's go 5, 9, 7. Actually, is that what you had? Frankly, Bossadu, and Awfully Special?
Which race?
Race 6.
No, I just had 1,
5, 7, 9?
I had 1, 5.
Oh, okay, cool. I'll go 5, 7, 9 for that one. 5, 7, and 9. We will place that bet, $6. And then I also have in race number 1, we're going to go with a exacta box of 1 and, oh, that one didn't come in. Well, anyways, I've got 378 in race number 2, tractor box, 579 in race number 6. And then in race number 1, we're going to do a $2 exacta box on up striker and no show, no call. So 4-7 on that. And then I think that'll leave me with $5 or $4 remaining. We'll go to race 7 and let's put it on Captive Kitten. Number 4, $4 to win Captive Kitten. There are the picks today. Live racing tonight, 7:30 p.m. at the Downs. asdowns.com for more information on that. Free parking, free admission. 7:30 is post time. What a show. But listen, we're just getting going today, actually, on Winnipeg Sports Talk, because CFL 110 is right now. Thanks again to Murat for Pags, Tony Jones, and Thomas Tipple for jumping on the program today. Lots to get to coming out of the Labor Day Classic in Regina, the crazy game in Southern Ontario between the Argos and Ticats, a bit of a dud between the Elks and Stamps. Jeff Hamilton and I all over it, starting right now here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Join us tomorrow. Doug Brown joins us for his thoughts as we get closer to game day on Saturday for the Banjo Bowl. For Michael Remis, I'm Andrew Paterson. CFL 110 is now on WST.
Oh my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.